I'm your host, Scary Pops, and everybody loves a good scare. So let's get into it. I'm a single father currently living with my 5-year-old son. I have an old wooden playground in my backyard, and it has a tire swing, monkey bars, and a big slide. A couple of times recently I heard noises coming from the playground at night, but I'll go ahead and start from the first night. I woke up one night last week to the sound of something squeaking from outside. I recognized it to be the sound of like a rusty chain of a tire swing spinning around. I also heard a young child's laughter out there. I thought it was my son, so I went into his room, but I found him in his bed fast asleep. Seeing him in his bed meant that some stranger was in my yard. But when I opened the back door to the backyard, there was no one back there. But the tire swing was spinning slowly, as if somebody just got off of it. I started to panic, but I figured it was probably just some kid just sneaking in my yard. So I decided to go back to sleep. Well, the next night, I woke up again to the sound of someone stomping up and down the slide. And once again accompanied by the sound of the child's laughter. I checked my son's room, but he was in bed. This was getting weird. I was thinking, I have to be a little smarter about this. So next time I'm going to check the window before going outside. But nothing was out there, not on the playground at least. But I went outside anyways just to make sure. And for a couple of nights after that, nothing happened. I completely kind of forgot about it. But then on the fourth night, while in bed, a knock on my window startled. I sat up in shock. I was afraid to look outside. But eventually I became brave enough. I looked out the foggy window, and through the smudge, I could see both the swings on the swing set, swinging lightly, accompanied with the laughter of the child again. Just then, I ran as fast as I could down the stairs, out the back door. But instead of finding a couple of deviant kids back there, I saw a towering figure standing by the slide. It was too dark outside to see any features, but its form was inhuman. It was black. It was a shadow. It was 7 feet tall. It was very thin and lanky. Whatever it was, I could just feel it staring at me. Fear took over. I ran back inside, make sure that I locked the door behind me. Just then I called the police. I waited for the officers to arrive, but it was like the longest 20 minutes I've ever experienced. And by the time they got there, the figure on the playground was gone. They took down what little information I could give them. I wish I could say that was the last occurrence. But just last night, there was another knock at my window. True crime stories. In February 1957 in Philadelphia, a college student discovered a young boy's remains in the woods and called the police to report its horrifying find. Visibly and severely beaten, the boy was found unresponsive inside an old bassinet box. No one knew who the young victim was. Numerous people came forward with information about the crime. Still, the police could not verify any of their claims, and many theories were dismissed, however. The media and police have shown much interest in 2 theories. Each one has been thoroughly examined. In February 2002, a woman only known as Martha, brought forward one of the main case theories. Martha had asserted that the boy named Jonathan was bought from his biological parents in the summer of 1954 by her violent mother. She claimed that the boy experienced physical and carnal torture inside the home. Martha knew of information that had not been made public, raising the police's attention to her statement. The woman claimed that the young boy had baked beans just before being battered to his demise, supporting the autopsy findings. She also said that he had been showered just before he passed away, which was consistent with the coroner's discovery of water-pruned fingertips. And although Martha's testimony appeared consistent with the evidence, her extensive history of mental illness rendered her an unreliable witness. The case stays unsolved today and is still open to this date. The boy remains unidentified in his grave in Philadelphia at Ivy Hill Cemetery and has a large headstone bearing the words, "America's Unknown Child."
I work at a 24-hour drive-thru restaurant, and this had happened only a few weeks ago. I'm a crew manager, but for the most part, I just do the same things everyone else does, which is cook and take orders. For overnight hours, we always have at least 2 people, one being a manager and the other usually being a cook. On this night, the cook had called in sick, and when I called the others to see if they could cover his shift, none of them said they could. So by 12 a.m., I was the only worker there. Now usually the restaurant doesn't get busy overnight, and more employees come in at 4 a.m., so it wasn't an entire shift alone, but it still meant that for 4 hours, I had to do everything myself. I left my headset on in case someone came to the drive-thru, then started working on the tasks I had for the night. I started by scraping and cleaning the stovetops, but a few minutes in, I was interrupted by a banging sound from the front of the restaurant. I walked down and looked over the counter, seeing a man standing at the front door and banging on it. Then he pressed his face against the glass and looked inside, scanning the whole room before his eyes set on me. I walked over to the door as he stared at me, and when I got closer, he backed up and waited like he thought I was going to open it. I yelled through the glass that our dine-in area was closed and that he needed to use the drive-thru if he wanted to order something. He looked confused, so I yelled again that the doors were locked and he had to use the drive-thru. He showed no response that time, not giving me any idea whether he understood me or not, so I just turned around and walked back to the kitchen. I figured he'd have to get the hint at some point that the doors weren't opening. I continued working on the stovetops, spending at least 15 to 20 minutes on them. Throughout this time, I had gone once to check the front to see if the man had left, and from what I could see, he was gone. The whole parking lot was empty, and the man was not at the door. But it was a couple minutes after finishing with the stoves that I got an alert from my headset that someone was in the drive-thru. I turned on my mic and asked for their order while walking to the window, but nobody said anything. When I got to the window, I immediately saw on the camera that there wasn't a car out there. I looked around the screen and didn't see any movement either, so I ignored it and started walking back. But as I got to the back room, I slowed to a stop when I thought I heard something. I stood in place and listened as footsteps slowly walked above me on the roof of the building. They were careful steps, not making much sound aside from the roof creaking, but I had no doubt that there was someone up there. I followed the sound of their steps with my stare, moving down the ceiling until I saw the ladder leading to the maintenance hatch, and that's when I realized what they were doing. I sprinted over to the ladder and started looking for some sort of lock to keep the hatch from opening, but I'd never even used it, so I had no clue how it worked or if it even locked. Then there was a loud creak from the ceiling directly above me, and a few thuds came from the outside of the hatch. A moment passed, then the hatch creaked open slightly, and through the small gap, all I saw were a set of eyes staring back at me. I sprinted for the front of the building, hearing loud thuds from where the hatch was as I quickly unlocked the door and ran for my car. I called the police as I sat inside and frantically looked through the windows of the restaurant. While on the phone, I saw a shadow moving by the front counter. Then a man appeared, standing in the far back of the restaurant, but was looking in my direction. After a moment, he turned and disappeared behind the kitchen, leaving me in a panic until the police made it. They searched inside and outside, going on the roof as well, but the man had already run off. Nothing from the place was missing either. No equipment or money was taken. Nothing. He just broke in and left. I tried to not think about it too much, but it's hard not to come to the conclusion that he was there for me. Like I said, this happened pretty recently, so there's still not much of an update on it. Even with his face on the cameras, there's yet to be a confirmed identity. The owner of the building added a padlock to the inside of the hatch though, which should have been done before, but I guess it was just an inconvenience. I still worry about the man's intentions, and if he could be watching for me to be alone again, waiting to do whatever it was he tried before.